which would then cause an issue. Because I feel like this has been an issue in society, periods, where we're always trying to prepare the woman to be a wife, but we're not preparing men to be a husband.
What's up, real ones? Welcome back to the Relationship Podcast, where we're bringing the real back to relationships.
Yes, sir.
I'm Asha Steele.
And I'm Devin Steele.
And we're so excited that you guys are tuning in today with us.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been about a week since we posted a new episode. Life has just been crazy. Last episode, Asha talked about how she's in school. Things are getting real for her. It seems like she got a quiz every other day. She got a test every other week. It's just like, it's crazy. Yeah. And then with me trying to run another company, it's hard to find time to, set aside to make these podcast episodes, especially when it's like you have to play teacher. Your kids aren't in school. You have a 1-year-old. There's no daycare to send them to. And where do you find time to do these type of things? Like today, we woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to shoot this episode. And Aria can pop up at any moment and we'll have to stop recording. So it's just like the world that we're living in is crazy. It's crazy. So a lot of our time is really allocated to family time and then income generating activities. Mm-hmm. And hopefully one day we'll get to the point where this podcast can be our full-time thing and we can dedicate all of our time, well, besides family time, to this podcast. Because we love the interaction that we have with you guys. Like we literally get hundreds of messages every single day, right? Of people asking us for advice or people just asking us to do certain topics on this podcast. So hopefully we'll be able to start doing this full time so we can dedicate a lot more time to doing this so that we can get you guys the information and the entertainment, because I know I'm an entertaining person, the entertainment that you guys need. But we're just happy to be back and shooting another episode.
Yes. So let's just get into this episode. It's been long awaited. So we have a question.
We got a couple of announcements first.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah. So before we get into our question from a real one, we have a few announcements. So you guys, if you're new here, welcome. Yep. If you've been rocking with us, one of our real ones, welcome back.
Shout out to y'all.
Yes. If you don't know, we have a Bible study, our weekly Bible study, which we host every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time on Instagram Live. Make sure you tune into that. It's a couples Bible study, but if you're not in a relationship, feel free to still come on over. We sit and we go through our couples devotional Bible. We read a scripture that follows with a few questions that, goes along with the scripture. And then afterward, we have an open discussion with you guys. So that's a great time. Also, another interactive on Instagram Live activity that we have is our weekly wind down. Now, the weekly wind down have been off the charts. Like, they have been amazing. From the guests that we've been having on, all the knowledge and gems that they've been dropping, the interactions that we've been having with all of you guys just tuning in and asking questions. It has been amazing.
Yeah, and the wind downs are not just for like influencers or experts. Like the wind downs are for you guys. So like if you have certain questions that you have, or you have maybe a story you want to tell about your relationship, then make sure you come to the wind down prepared and request to go live. And we would love to hear your story, as I'm sure everybody who's watching the weekly wind down would love to hear your story. So every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, make sure you bring your wine, because it's a wind down. We wind it down from the stressful week. And then bring your stories, bring your questions, because we'll love to hear them.
Absolutely. So getting into our question this week from a real one, it says, hey guys, 4 months ago, I found out my husband was involved in an inappropriate relationship with one of his coworkers. He was giving the woman money and basically bashed me as a mother, all while I was pregnant with his second child. When I found out about the affair, he said he had cut it off, but when I went through his phone a few days later, he changed her name and was still texting. He insists now that the affair is over and wants his family. My issue is I feel I was manipulated into forgiving him because he threatened to harm himself. How do I forgive him and move on if I feel like I was forced to forgive and move on? That's deep.
Yeah, that's real deep. Because in that message, I'm not hearing you say that you want to make this work,
Mm-hmm.
which is tough. You're saying that you feel like you were forced to because he was threatened to harm himself, which is a sad situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously you care about this man. You don't want him to harm yourself, but how much are you harming yourself by staying in this relationship with somebody you can't trust?
Right.
That's the biggest thing for me. Is you're harming yourself in order to not harm him. And I don't think that you should ever stay in a relationship where you're in that type of situation.
Right.
It's one thing if y'all decided mutually that y'all were going to do what it takes to make it work. But if you gave him a chance and he proved to you that he wasn't willing to put in the effort to change and make it work, and the only thing he changed was the girl's name in his phone, then I think you really need to take in consideration if this is the relationship for you. Like, I would never sit up here and tell somebody based off an Instagram message, oh, leave your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe that all stories are deeper than that. And to tell somebody to make that type of decision without being able to talk to them personally and find out what their story is, I would never do that. But what I will tell you is that you have to look at what he's already given you, because the answer, you already know what you should do, right? The only thing is you have to move on that action.
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound like somebody who's willing to really put in the work, because if a couple of days later, after being caught, the only thing he changed was her name and he continued to do the same thing and he bashed you as a mom, he talked down on you to another woman, that has to be hurtful. And I don't know if anybody can really get over that type of hurt. So if you're in that situation, then I will advise you to listen to your gut, pray about it, and then take action. And most of all, forgive yourself. Because I know a lot of times when we go through something like that, we try to find out what's wrong with us. What did we do to cause the person to cheat on us? But there's nothing that somebody can do to make somebody cheat on them. That's a decision that another individual makes, because if there was ever an issue in the relationship, you're supposed to come to your partner and talk about it and find out a solution, not find that solution outside of your marriage. So I would love to work with you more on a personal level to really find out what is going on in your marriage before we give that type of advice to walk away.
Yeah, I feel like the biggest thing for me that stood out was him saying like self-harming himself. That's a huge red flag. And I say that because if his actions of stepping out on y'all relationship cause for him to make such a life-altering, threat to himself that not only affects him, but it affects you as well. It affects y'all children. He's not in I feel like the mental state that he should be in to have a healthy, productive relationship. I feel like y'all need to possibly seek counseling, especially him, because to be able to say something like that based off a decision that he made as a responsible adult, and to think that saying that will be a reason for you to just automatically, forget and forgive is a problem. So that's something that should be addressed, because anyone who is talking about, harming their self, no matter what the situation is, definitely has to speak to someone and seek counseling so that doesn't go through whatever the situation turns out.
And I would say this too, and this is not every situation. There are some people out there who really need that type of therapy, who are really struggling mentally. But there are also some people who are just downright controlling, and they don't really plan on harming themselves, but they throw that out there in order to make the person stay.
Right. But that's why I say you need to seek counseling, because just to be able to sit up there and say those words, I will harm myself, whether you're coming from a place where you're making a threat and you feel like, oh, me saying this is going to, keep this person here, or if they really intend on doing it, just speaking that action is very extreme. So that's why you need to definitely seek counseling to understand why that would be something that will even formulate out your mouth to begin with. So I think that's something that he definitely has to do, and he needs to go through whatever healing process that he needs to go through for himself to identify why it is that he decided to make that action to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of, dealing with the consequences of his actions, he chooses to take,
put the burden on you.
Put the burden on you and take the, lesser road of dealing with his actions by making it seem like, oh, I need you to stay because if not, I'm going to do this and the third. So I definitely, like Devin said, we would love to work with you on a more personal level to just be able to help you through your situation. But I feel like seeking counseling is a number one priority.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it might not even be marriage counseling.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all have to go through that healing process as individuals, where y'all go see your own counselors. And then y'all work through your own personal issues. And then there may be a point where y'all can come together and work as a unit and work on your marriage. But I feel like right now, there needs to be individualized counseling that you need to go through. Because he clearly needs to go through counseling because of the mental space he's in right now. But you also need to go through a healing process for yourself because you gave your life and your heart to a man. He chose to break it. He chose to break it.
Yeah.
And he talked down on you, right? And you had to go through a crazy time in your life while you were pregnant, where it's a time where you're supposed to be happy, right? Where you're supposed to cherish those moments. So there's a lot that you have to go through as well. So I would suggest that y'all go through that counseling process by yourself so that you can work through your personal issues before y'all try to go through marital counseling.
Yes. So before we get into the topic, let me just ask, do you have a keeping it real moment? Like what's going on with you?
Keeping it real moment. I do have a keeping it real moment. First, my first keeping it real moment was going to be like, it's too early to be doing all this. But a real just keeping it real moment. I had this talk with you a couple of days ago. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I damaged the Black community.
What do you mean by that?
You know how, like, people say all the time about drug dealers, like, y'all are putting drugs into our community, y'all are hurting our community.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at my actions early on when I was in the NFL, I feel like I had the same effect where I was living a certain lifestyle, and it's not like I was hiding that lifestyle. Like I will post stuff on my Instagram and stuff of me going out to clubs, partying, of me with groups of girls and stuff like that. And I didn't realize at the time, but I was conditioning young men who follow me. To inspire to be like the image I was portraying. Like there may have been young guys out there who had thoughts of getting married, who had goals of getting married, and then they came across my page and it was like, no, I wouldn't live that type of lifestyle because that looks like fun. So I had a negative impact on young men in our community by the way that I lived my life. And it made me realize that the work that we're doing right now is so important because I want to show young men that marriage is fun.
Right.
That this is better than living that life where you're just out there partying, throwing away money, sleeping with a bunch of women, but you're actually finding a partner to spend the rest of your life with.
Yeah.
And build a family with. And build generational wealth with. I feel like this is what we should be promoting. Like we should make real love cool again. We should make marriage cool again. Because there's a different image going out there to these young men. And I played a part and a role in doing that. And I want to apologize for the men or the young men who were following me and they saw me living that type of lifestyle and it made you want to live that type of lifestyle. because it doesn't lead anywhere good. It causes a lot of issues financially, emotionally, sexually, just everything. So I wanted to apologize about the things that I put out there into the atmosphere. And with this podcast and how I live my life, I want to show you guys that there's a better way of life. And we're going to show you that through our actions, through our marriage, and we're going to continue to just gain the knowledge that we need to have in order to serve everybody who listens to our podcast, because the nuclear family is so important to the success of our community. That's why it was so important for them to break it up.
Yeah. So
now we have to give the tools to bring that back together and keep them together. So my Just Keeping It Real moment is just apologizing, man. And it's not just words, but it's going to be by my actions how I'm going to reverse the things that I had put out there into the universe.
Okay. Well, I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yes. So let's get into today's topic, you guys.
Oh, it's going to be a crazy topic. You know that everybody is not going to, agree with this.
Right.
The fellas will. The ladies, not so much. But that's what this podcast is all about. It's talking about real topics.
Yeah.
We're not saying that our thoughts or our way of doing things is the way that you should do it, except for this podcast, ladies.
Well, I feel like some women will agree.
I said some women.
Yeah.
But most women won't agree from what I see online. But like I said, we wanted to use this podcast to talk about topics that people don't want to talk about. And our objective is to spark conversation.
Yeah.
Not to tell you what you need to do, but just to spark the conversation so that we can all get on one page and we can have the necessary conversations in our relationships that will help take it to the next level.
Absolutely.
So without further ado, today's topic, drum roll please. Should wives submit to their husbands? Why you make that face?
Psych.
So my question for you, Asha, to start this conversation off, when was the first time you heard about submission when it referred to marriage? Was you taught that when you was a kid?
No. I wasn't taught anything. I don't think I ever even had a conversation about submission.
Right.
Especially as like a wife and the role of submitting to your husband ever in life.
Right.
The first time I actually heard of it, which is very, very odd, probably ironic, was when we were getting married and I was at the altar and Miss Deb, our officiant, mentioned it when she was, going over, we were reading our vows and she said something about submitting. And the context of her saying that, because I'm such a strong-minded woman, individual, it was just like hearing the word submit to your husband, even though I know, like, okay, I'm giving my all to this person, I'm becoming one with this person, just that word alone, I literally, and I don't know if we're going to interject it.
I'm going to put the video. I think we have it recorded. I'm going to put the video on this podcast somewhere so y'all can actually see her reaction.
Like, I literally was like frozen for a little bit. It's like my mind, and I don't even think it was intentional, but my mind was processing it. Like, it was like from her mouth to my ears to my brain, and it just stuck. Like, submit. What? Like, I'm sitting there like, what exactly? And I probably wanted to be like, what do you mean by submit? Can you clarify? But it wasn't the right time to give that the response. So I was just sitting there processing it. And then it was just like, okay, yeah. I'm going to submit. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy because I saw you freeze. I know you, and I saw the look on your face. You were like, what are you talking about? Yeah. And she had to repeat it like 3 times, I think it was, where she was like, say, I will submit to my husband. Right. And you was just had this blank stare like, what are you talking about? And, ironically enough, that was the first time I heard about submission. So when she said it, it kind of caught me off guard because I'm like, submit? Like, what you mean submit?
Right.
Like, in my mind, submit means something totally different than a biblical aspect.
So
right?
what
she
do you
was
think
talking
it
about.
means in your mind?
to me, I think that most people, I think the misconception about submitting for most women is they feel like they're less than their husband. When I don't feel like that's what submission means.
So is that what you thought in that moment? Like in that moment, what did you think?
Oh, in that moment?
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it meant like you just follow everything I tell you to do.
Right.
That's what I thought, which is why I was confused because nobody ever taught me about submission in a relationship. So when I heard that, I was like, what?
Yeah. I think that's probably why I was like so taken back by it, because it was like just processing submit. And it's just like, okay, what exactly do you mean by that? Like, I'm supposed to do exactly what this man says when he says it, how he says it. Like,
Yeah,
I'm just supposed
to
it. Submit to you. Like, okay, I am your servant. Like, I'm here to serve you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think just not having the clarification of what that looks like as the role of being a wife and submitting to your husband was kind of like, you know, making me a little bit hesitant and like shocking, the shock factor to it.
And it's crazy. What's also crazy about that moment, and then we're going to go and we're going to dive in deep about what our thoughts are about submission now that we have a better understanding. But now that we have, you know, done the work in order to learn what it means to submit, I think the only problem during that moment when she told you that you're supposed to submit to your husband is that she didn't tell me that I'm also supposed to submit to God.
Okay.
Which would then cause an issue. Because I feel like this has been an issue in society, periods, where we're always trying to prepare the woman to be a wife, but we're not preparing men to be a husband.
Come on with the word.
Like, I think it's unfair to just tell the woman her responsibilities as a wife, especially at our ceremony, but then not tell me what my responsibilities are as a husband.
Right.
And now that we have a better understanding from a biblical standpoint of what it means to submit, a man is also supposed to submit to God so that he's always walking in the presence of God, so that when a woman submits to her husband, she can feel confident that he is going to lead her down the right path.
Yeah.
Because he is being led by God.
Right.
And because that wasn't explained, we struggled with that. You struggled with that.
Right.
And I think that's what happens with most women.
Yeah. I think that what you said is really important, even in the sense of submitting to God, because I understand like a lot of people are at different walks in their faith journey, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just like, just knowing that you as a man you're laying your foundation, right?
Yeah.
And at the core of that foundation is your faith. I think that's really important, because a lot of times, you know, you go into the marriage and you don't really have, some people don't have that stable foundation. They don't have that guidance. They don't have that spiritual connection. So they may feel like a lot of things are shaky or uncertain or rocky. They may be looking at their husband and he's not, you know, doing the things necessarily that they feel like a husband should be doing, right?
Right.
Maybe he is not, you know, being husband-like. Maybe he is out here still doing whatever he wants to do, even though he's married, you know, living a certain lifestyle. Or even if he's not living a certain lifestyle, he's not respecting you in the household. Like, y'all are not on the same page. Y'all are not communicating. Things are just not being done appropriate as it should be in your relationship.
Right.
So just the idea of you submitting to this individual who you married and, you know, you're supposed to be doing that to, is just like, okay, well, what am I doing this for? Yeah. Because we not even on the same accord. Like, I'm not getting the respect that I feel like I should be getting out of this relationship as a wife. Right. But I'm supposed to submit to this man who, you know, is supposed to honor me as I honor him. And I think that's hard for a lot of individuals. So I think it's very important that you said you submitting to God and understanding your role as a husband and taking that role very serious and walking and presenting yourself in a certain light to be the best version of yourself so that your wife follows suit, right? Because y'all, I feel like, are a reflection of each other.
Right.
So I think that's really important that you said that.
And you said something earlier that it caught my attention. And now that we have a understanding of what submission is, for those, because we didn't go over the definition, but I wrote this down. Submission to us means is you're willing to place yourself under the authority of another to accomplish a common goal. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't only just see this in marriages, but you see this in companies as well. There's CEOs, there's COOs, and the COO has to listen to the CEO. The managers have to listen to the CEO. So you're basically submitting your power to that person, submitting your authority to that person, but y'all all have one common goal of making the business work.
Right.
It's the same thing with a marriage. Like, y'all have a common goal to make things work, but you also continue to have influence on the route in which you take in order to get to that goal. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But now that we have a clear definition of what submission is, you said earlier that you are a very strong-minded woman, right? And I feel like there's a lot of strong-minded women, independent women out there. Now that you know the real definition of submission, would you still have hesitated during our ceremony when Miss Deb told you to submit to me? Now that you have a clear understanding of what submission is, and I'm going to give you a 2-part question. Do you think that the era we're living in now, the modern day women, everybody always preaching to them to be independent, to do it on your own. Do you think that plays a role in women not being willing to submit to their husbands?
Okay, so the first part, would I have hesitated? So, like you said, had it been, explained to me the definition of what it is, had we sat down and had a conversation of what that looks like for our relationship, and like you said, the awakening of you realizing what you have to do to submit within our relationship, I wouldn't have hesitated in that sense.
Take that part. I want you to take that part out.
What part?
About me realizing what I needed to do. Like, just on your part. Because a lot of women say, oh, I'll be willing to submit to my man if he does this, that, and the third. But biblically, it tells women to submit to their husbands. So I want you to take out that transactional thing from it. Whereas, like, okay, if he does this, then I submit. With you knowing the definition, would you have been willing to submit, or would you have hesitated just off of your own actions?
So, I mean, to be completely honest and transparent and knowing the definition, I feel like I would have been more comfortable in, one, knowing what that looked like, and 2, having the understanding, like you said, the biblical understanding of what it means, right? Because if I'm walking personally within my faith journey and I'm trying to follow God and honor his God and his word and everything like that, then for me personally as an individual, I would be willing to take that step and submit, because this is what, God wants. And that's my faith. That's what I believe in. So of course I would have no problem in doing it. However, the person within me,
y'all always throwing out these.
No, because it's a realistic thing. Like, the spiritual part of me would be like, okay, this is what I want to do, because this is what I practice. This is my faith. This is what I believe. This is what God is saying that I should be doing. So of course I want to honor God. I want to honor my husband. I want to honor my marriage. So yes. However, like I said, the flesh, sometimes we have a back and forth with the spirit and the flesh. Yeah. That part of me would be like, okay, the transactional part. Well, what does that look like as far as what my husband is doing for me? So it would kind of play like, yeah, it's kind of like what people say, having unconditional love. Like, a lot of times love is conditional to, if this person is loving me a certain type of way and doing this for me, then I would have no problem. But if they're treating me the wrong way, how do I have that unconditional love still? Right. So I feel like it will give me the question in my mind of the what if, but I wouldn't have hesitated in the same sense that I did before, not knowing all of that. However, I do feel like society, in a sense, has contributed to the idea of women not necessarily feeling comfortable with submitting and feeling like they have to be independent. And I feel like that because not only with society, but like you said, within the household, like a lot of women have seen or been taught, raised that they have to take on this independent role, right? They don't have the support necessarily, or they didn't see the support of the man doing or contributing in a certain way, maybe in their household.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, okay, I have to take on this role as an independent woman. And even if they don't see that, a lot of women, feel like we have been, kind of placed on the back burner, where it's like we had to be in this role of just being the woman, playing the role of a woman, which looks like for a lot of times, years ago, just being in the house, taking care of this, that, and the third. So, and the movement of women wanting to come out of that and being independent and saying, I want to be equal. I want to go out and work. I'm entitled to go out and work. I can contribute to the household. I'm just as smart. I'm just as capable. It's like we kind of been programmed in a sense that that's the role that we have to be, because it's like, it's kind of like fighting for, your equality in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, oh, well, men have past generations. I mean, it's obvious men have put down women in a sense, right? They put them in a category where they weren't competent enough to do certain things. Like they had to be placed in this box and do only this, that, and the third based off of what man told them.
Right.
Not what God told them at the time, but it's like, you have to do this.
Right.
You can't do this. You can't go out and get this degree. You can't go out and do this type of thing. So in having that, constantly instilled in you, it's like, no, well, I want to do this. I want to do more. And I mean, we can get deep, to be honest, because I feel like it's kind of like the same thing with cultures and, race, where it's like, if people say the Black person has been held down for so many generations, they weren't able to, rise and do certain things because all the, circumstances that been placed on us to not be able to go out and live a certain lifestyle and do certain things and have the certain rights that we're entitled to, that now it's just like, no, we're going to fight for this because this is what we feel like is owned to us. This is what we deserve. So it's just like, I feel like in a sense it has been like that with women, where it's just like we've been placed in this box for so long, and it's just like, you're not going to keep me in this box. Yeah. Like, I have more to offer. But in the sense of marriage and seeing that, a lot of women haven't seen that. A lot of women haven't seen that support and that structure to be like, no, you have this loving husband who wants to be there to cherish and honor you and wants to, lead you down the right path. They don't want to stare you in the wrong direction. So you are able to feel confident in knowing that I'm going to submit to my husband, and it's not going to be me, submitting and feeling like I made the wrong decision. I feel like if the woman was shown that and had a clear understanding of that and knew, like you said, we did the research and knowing and applying it to our lives, then maybe their perspective on it would change.
Yeah, I think you made a lot of great points. I think there's a lot of things that contribute to it. Like you said, it's just like women fighting for their rights now because they have been placed in a box, and now they want to show the world what they're capable of doing because a lot of people put them in a box. Mm-hmm. But I also think that past trauma plays a part. Mm-hmm. Passed down trauma from generation to generation plays a part in women hesitating to submit to the husbands. Like, let's just say, because a lot of times when you hear women talk, they say, oh, my mom or my grandmom taught me to be an independent woman, to not need a man. And I ain't questioning nobody's grandmom, but what I will say is, why do you think she taught you this? Mm-hmm. What did you see in her life, in her relationship, that caused her to teach you this? Was she still married to her husband? Was she hurt about what her husband did to her? Mm-hmm. Did she feel bad about giving her heart to a man and he broke it? So now she's going to teach you to be the woman that she thought she should have been.
Right.
or that she wished she was because she had her heart broken. Now she's not teaching you the right way because she don't want you to get hurt the way that she got hurt. Like, the crazy thing about love, everybody is always trying to protect themselves, to protect their hearts. They put up these walls.
Yeah.
And you don't really let people in. But the crazy thing about love, the beautiful thing about love is that you find somebody that say, you know what, I know there's a chance you might hurt my heart or break my heart, but I'm willing to give you my heart because I trust that you will take care of it, that you will respect me and honor me. And if that's something that doesn't happen, then that's just a part of love and relationships. That doesn't mean that you have to get a cold heart and put up a wall and never let nobody else in. You have to detox from that relationship.
Yeah.
Recharge yourself, recharge your heart, and then go into a new relationship willing to give your heart to somebody that's deserving of it.
Right.
But I feel like women have been hurt in the past, grandmoms, moms, and then now we're trying to teach our daughter to be so independent that she don't need a man, and then when she meets a man, it's hard to make that relationship work because you're not willing to pull back a little bit to allow a man to be a man.
Right.
If society is teaching men you have to be providers for your family, but then you meet a woman who has everything and she constantly lets you know, look, I don't need you. I'm independent. I can do it on my own. Then where does a man fit into a relationship?
Right. No,
because now his role is like, well, what is my role now?
Right. I think that's very true what you're saying. It makes a lot of sense, especially in the sense of a woman saying, I don't need you. Right. Because it's just like in life, we need that companionship. Like, we need that love. There's no way around it whatsoever. Like, that is essential part of life, is having that companionship, having that love and interaction and affection for another person. Like, it's
like,
a known fact.
I'm not an independent man.
Right.
I depend on you.
Right. So in saying that, I feel like a lot of people or women have to get out of that mindset of saying, I don't need a man. Like, you may feel like, okay, you are independent and you're entitled to feel as independent as you want to be. You can be out here making all the money that you want to make, have the degrees, doing what you need to do, take care of your own, but just saying that you don't need a man can be toxic and harmful to your future relationships or even your current relationship. Because it's just like you said, you want to know that that person needs you. Whether you're saying, oh, I don't need you financially, I don't need you to support me because I can help contribute too. Like, it's great that you can be able to contribute your own, but just saying that, oh, I don't need you is very harmful to your relationship because we need each other. Like,
and then if you take that mindset into a relationship, how much of yourself are you really giving a person?
Right.
If any minute you can walk away because you like, you know what, I don't need this person.
Right.
Like, I can do this all by myself. It doesn't really increase your chances of having a successful relationship. And to touch on, passing down trauma again, because I talked about women passing it on to girls who then grow up and believe that the goal should be to be independent and not need a man. Women who has also been hurt in the past, who have sons, who are raising sons, they try to mold them into the man that they wanted to have, right? So then I believe that women sometimes raise a weak man. And for those who are not watching this, I'm putting this in air quotes because when I say a weak man, I'm not talking about in the sense of being tough or being strong. But what I'm saying is that you don't teach a man how to handle his responsibilities, right? So then when he gets into a relationship with a woman, he doesn't know how to properly lead. And for a woman who's looking to be led, he doesn't have the skills to do that because his mom may have taught him, look, you don't need to do all that. Like, strong, independent women, they will run the household. So then he gets walked all over by women who are independent or he doesn't know how to lead by women who are expecting a man to know how to lead.
Mm-hmm.
So it causes an issue. And then there's men out there who downright just don't know how to lead. It has nothing to do with the passed down trauma from their mom or grandmom. But there's a lot of men who expect to have the kingdom without the responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
They expect their woman to just submit to them or to allow them to lead, and they have no leadership qualifications.
Right.
And I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be. Like, we have to learn how to be leaders so that when we are in relationship, our women are confident that we can lead them down the right path.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there are a lot of men who are great leaders, but there are some men, probably a majority of men, who honestly don't know how to lead.
Right.
And they just want the title without the responsibilities.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, women are hesitant to do that. So I feel like there's work that needs to be done on both ends.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I feel like I agree with that. And I feel like you said, the importance of what you said is just them having the clear understanding of what that leadership is, and having the guided understanding, like someone actually guided them and gave them the perspective of what that looks like.
Right.
And it was the honest truth of what that looks like. Because like you said, just as much as they could be influenced from their mother, they can be influenced from their father. Maybe their father wasn't that great of a leader in his household.
Right.
But your upbringing and what you're taught is what you most times turn out to be. So what that leadership looks like and that role looks like to him, maybe if he's seen it from a father, or maybe he didn't have a father, or whoever may have shown him that, may not be necessarily the right idea of what it should be like for your woman to want to submit to you. So I feel like having that clear guidance from the right person, the right source, to be able to show you, like, you know what, this is what this looks like. Mm-hmm. And this is the role that you have to play in order for your woman to feel comfortable and confident in your relationship, in your marriage, to say, you know what, this is what I'm going to do.
I also want to clarify what you just said, though. Because we're talking about submission, and you said whether you submit in your relationship.
Well, no, that's why I corrected myself, because I feel like it comes with marriage. That's why I said in your relationship, but then I follow with marriage, because like I said, it takes that role of submitting when you go into your marriage. Yes. Like, I'm not for, playing the role of a wife before you get the title, the actual ring, the actual certificate, or playing the role of a husband. You can prepare. The preparation is amazing. Mm-hmm. It's great. But playing that actual role comes with the actual, commitment to say, this is what I'm about to do. This is what we're doing. Not even about, this is what we're doing as we're walking into that role, that title of being husband and wife, not before boyfriend and girlfriend, So, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that it's a touchy subject for a lot of people, because I think that so many people are not knowledgeable on what it means to submit. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying it's your fault, because it's something that a lot of people are not taught growing up. Mm-hmm. But when you get of certain age, it's your job to go out there and educate yourself. Right. Like, if you want to have a strong and healthy marriage, you can't keep saying, oh, I didn't see one when I was growing up, so I don't know how to have one. Mm-hmm. No, you go learn. Mm-hmm. Like, if something's important to you, you'll put in the work to go learn. You can't say, oh, I never had a dad growing up, so I don't know how to be a dad. No, learn. Like, right. Be what you always wanted growing up. Right. Like, we got to stop using excuses of not seeing things when we were growing up as a way to be terrible husbands and fathers. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just not okay. Like, at some point you have to take responsibility and say, look, I'm old enough to know better and do better. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very important for us as men to understand our role as men, as the head of the household. Stop demanding the title and not willing to take on the responsibilities.
Right.
Like, it's unfair. If you are incapable of leading, don't get into a relationship until you find out how to lead.
Mm-hmm.
If you're incapable of leading, don't have children until you learn how to lead. Because these are two very important roles that we play in a household. And if you don't know how to do these things properly, you can damage the people who are trusting you to lead them.
Mm.
It's not fair.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of work that we have to do. And I took a note because I wanted to really hit home on this for men. Because like I said, society preaches to women all the time about how they need to submit to their husbands. But rarely do you hear people tell husbands how they're supposed to submit to God. So I took a note that I wanted to say to my men out there. It says, God wants men to act, portray, and live like the Lord. And only when a man does so should the woman submit. Husbands must love their wives like Christ loved the church. Jesus laid his life down for the church, and husbands should do the same, or else you shouldn't expect your wives to submit. Laying down your life doesn't mean to die for your wife, because that happens in the moment, in one split moment, and most people are not jumping in front of a car to save their wife. The chances of that happening is pretty slim. But it says when you lay down your life for your wife, you must deny yourself the personal gratifications and the personal satisfaction in things that are of a selfish nature to you. So laying down your wife doesn't mean jumping in front of a bullet, because you probably won't have to do that in your life. It doesn't mean jumping in front of a bus, because you probably won't have to do that in life. But it's about living for your wife, living for your family, sacrificing the things that bring you pleasure that may be hurting your wife. For example, if following certain women on Instagram was bringing me pleasure, and my wife said, look, I don't want you following those type of women on Instagram, it's my job to sacrifice doing that because it only brought me self-gratification for my wife. If I love going out and hanging out with my friends all the time, and my wife says, hey, I wish you could be home more so we can spend time together, then I need to sacrifice all the time that I'm spending with my boys to be there for my wife. If I love going to the casino, I'm trying to hit every different aspect here. If I love going to the casino and my wife says, hey, you know, this is really messing us up financially. You're never home to help me with the kids. We don't get to spend time together. I need to sacrifice my desire to go to the casino for the betterment of my relationship. That's what laying down your life for your wife means. Sacrificing the things that you love doing that is hurting her. That's how you submit. And for women out there, if a man is telling you to do something that is not of God, then of course you don't submit to that man. Mm-hmm. Because at the end of the day, before you honor your husband, you honor God. And if he is telling you to do certain things that don't honor God, then that's not a man that you should submit to.
Yeah.
So that's the last thing I had to say on that.
Yeah, so I feel like this topic, like you said, is a very sensitive topic, but I hope that this podcast has just shed some light to what it looks like to submit as a wife to your husband.
Yeah. And as y'all can hear in the background, that means Aria is up.
Yes.
I think that we covered enough in this podcast that I feel comfortable ending it there. Hold on. Let her come here, boo-boo.
Come on, mommy.
Come make your first appearance.
Yes, you guys.
Say hey, girl. You gonna say hi?
She's like, no.
So
I'm so
I told y'all we woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning to try to get this done. And I knew Aria would probably wake up during this podcast, but like I said, I feel like we covered enough in this. If not, if y'all have more questions about this, we'll do a part 2 to this episode. But I just felt like this conversation needed to be had.
Yeah.
Right? That we needed to really have an understanding of what submission looks like and what we needed to do as individuals, as a man and as a woman, in order to make our partners comfortable in, submitting to one another. Right. There is something I wanted to ask you before we end this. Is there anything that I did specifically that made you more comfortable submitting? Because like you said, initially when you were told this at our ceremony, you was kind of uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Is there anything that I did, or is there something specifically you did that made you more comfortable submitting?
So to be honest, I feel like just seeing the way that you were living, like I had already knew what your values was, how you were as a person from before we even got engaged, right? So just knowing your values, and the way that you presented yourself as a man and as a father, it allowed for me to see you in a certain light that I trusted in following you in a sense. But in marriage and in seeing the way that you were preparing yourself for marriage, the way that you were, studying the word of God, the way that you were taking on certain responsibilities and trying to change for the betterment of our family made me feel more confident than what I had already been.
Right.
So just seeing you taking those steps and being serious about our relationship, being serious about our future, whether it be from preparing our finances to, be in place for a certain position for us in life, whether it be from, like I said, you taking on that role of understanding your faith better so that you can be the man that you want to be and walk in the light and image of God the way that you want to. All of that stuff, counseling, to be able to sit down and say, you know what, I actually want to go to counseling. I want to heal myself, but not only for myself, but for our marriage, for you as well. I think all of those things contributed to me feeling very confident and comfortable and willing to submit because I knew that you were on the right path for me to follow. So,
well, there you have it. For all the men out there, I ain't saying that's going to work for your woman, but I just wanted y'all to hear from a woman what it took for her to feel comfortable in submitting. Like I said, we have a lot of work to do as men. We can't just continue to ask for the title without the responsibility. So let's all out there just do what we need to do in order to, make our relationship successful and make our partners comfortable in, taking on the role of a wife and a husband.
Absolutely. So we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Until next time, you guys, keep it real.
Yes, sir.